Sir.
You hang out in Hollywood with all of these movie studio types, and these are your clients, and sometimes the people that you have to argue against also. Does anyone seriously believe that Disney would stop making movies if their copyright on Mickey Mouse had run out after 100 years rather than extending it to 120 years?
Okay, the question was, I hope that you got it on the, does anyone believe that Disney would stop making movies if the copyrights would run out?
It's not worth it. We can't get enough of a return if we're only going to have copyright in these movies for 100 years. We've got to have 120 years to make it to motivate us to create. Otherwise, we're just going to go flip hamburgers or something instead.
Correct. Okay, I don't know of anyone who said that Disney would do General Motors or Citicorp or Bank of America if their copyrights began to expire much sooner. I don't know of anyone who's ever said that. However, Disney would contend this goes into our bottom line. This is some revenue that we need. We may not need it now, but who knows what can happen 6 or 12 or 18 months from now. Right now, we look like we're rich, fat, dumb, and happy, and I think that they are, and particularly after some of the events that occurred last night. But what they're saying essentially is this is another revenue stream. It's not like saying to a company, well, how much can we take away from you and get you to continue to contribute? That their attitude is, how much money can we make? So the answer to your question is no. I have never heard anyone contend that Disney would stop making movies if the Copyright Term Extension Act were not passed and the copyrights to Mickey Mouse expired. And by the way, if you go to Disneyland, I was there. I don't think I've been there for a couple of decades since my kids grew up. They have there one area where they show the pictures of Steamboat Willie, which is, I think, the original Mickey Mouse cartoons. And I think that, in fact, you can probably get Steamboat Willie from someone probably without paying too much money. So Disney would not stop making movies if the terms of copyrights were not longer. But Disney would contend, well, we need the money. We want the money, and we're entitled to it. It's our property.
The argument that Justice Ginsburg makes here does not seem to support the necessity of extending their copyright term. But anyway, I'll let somebody else ask a question.
The other argument that we would probably make is that there are enormous advances in science that never would have been imaginable or occurred had the profit motive governed activities. And the internet is a wonderful example of that. That the whole evolution of the internet and so much of this computer science stuff came about because people operated outside of the profit motive. I mean, the whole open source software universe, and there are lots of pieces that operate outside of the profit motive. So I think I would really take that exception to some of it. So obviously, profit motive has helped in all sorts of areas, but some areas it's really been critical that it not apply.
Yeah, the comment, I hope that you got it on there, was that there was many things that were developed without the profit motive, although the profit motive was a very strong thing. For example, the first computer, the ENIAC, was developed not for profit. It was developed under an Army contract at the University of Pennsylvania. The two inventors, John Presper Eckert, the electrical engineer, and John W. Markley, a mathematician, then negotiated with the university. They were scientists for the university, and they negotiated with the Army after the Second World War, after the ENIAC was invented, to keep the patent rights, and they left the University of Pennsylvania. They started Eckert-Markley Computer Company using, and one of the things that they relied on to get financing was the patent rights to the ENIAC. What's ironic is that Eckert-Markley Computer Company eventually had to sell out to Remington Rand. I was involved in that litigation when the patent eventually issued in the 1960s, and John Markley told me that they were about ready to go bankrupt. They were brilliant scientists, but terrible entrepreneurs. And that seems to prove that what's more important than intellectual property rights is good entrepreneurship. But to further augment the statement that Professor Nesson made, like, for example, think of all of the great things that have been written without copyrights. For example, let's start with the Torah. Well, regardless of whether you look at it for spiritual guidance or you think of it as an historical document, no one got copyrights on it. Did Shakespeare get copyrights on any of his plays? And if Shakespeare did not get copyrights, does that mean that the plays would have never been written? So there is a question of do you really need copyrights for creativity? On the other hand, it does provide some incentive.
Thank you very much. Maybe hang around for a few minutes. Thanks, all. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. This is revenue.